Hello and welcome to Quick Learn Photography, straight to the point videos where I teach you everything that I've learned in over the last 10 years of professional photography. I'm James, and in this one we're going to talk about auto ISO. And by the end of this video you're going to know what it is and how to use it. Now if you don't know what ISO is, then check out the video I did before where I explain how ISO can either make the image brighter or darker and how you control that. It's one of the three variables, the exposure triangle, that helps with the exposure with shutter speed, aperture and ISO. All these three things depend on how bright or dark the image is. So it's great to know how to control ISO, but sometimes if you want to be quick, if you're doing like events, documentary or anything quick fire stuff where you don't want to be really dialing into the menu systems and adjusting the ISO up or down or whatever controls you got for it, sometimes it's quicker just to leave it to do its own thing with auto ISO, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, one way you can control it quickly is what I talked about in the previous video about exposure compensation. This is so useful. Exposure compensation is amazing, and I use it all the time, and so many other professionals do as well. Now, exposure compensation will help you adjust brighter or darker for any automatic mode, and auto ISO is one of those things. So basically, you're letting the camera decide what ISO the image should be. It will meter the scene. Again, if you don't know what metering is, check out one of my previous videos on that, where the camera meters the scene and decides what sort of exposure it should be. And then it will adjust the ISO high or dark according to whatever it thinks it should be. And with exposure compensation, if you want it a bit darker, you can just pull it down a bit, or brighter, push it up a little bit. That way you don't know what ISO it's going to pick, but it's always going to go for that slightly darker look that you might want. So you want to capture the ambience of a scene, like a low light restaurant or something like that. You don't want the ISO going through the roof on automatic mode. You want to keep it low, but you don't want to keep adjusting it. You just balance it downwards a little bit. Same for really bright sunny days. ISO will be pretty low on a bright sunny day, but if the ISO is needed and you're on auto ISO, then it kind of does it for you, but you can push it one way or the other with exposure compensation. So if you don't know what that is, please watch exposure compensation video, and that is like a real like assistant to this subject, auto ISO. They both work together really well. So yeah, auto ISO is great, and you can also cap it as well. Sometimes I'm going to do a more detailed video on this later, where you can put a limit on when the shutter speed stops, and then the ISO will kick in and it will go into auto ISO. So I don't want to overcomplicate things. That'll be for the more advanced videos later on as we go along in this tutorial beginners series of videos that I'm doing. So that's what auto ISO is. It will just adjust it up and down without you worrying about the exact settings that you want. Sometimes if it's like studio work or still life or products or whatever it is you're doing, property, then you choose the ISO because you've got time to really dial it in and get it exactly what you want. But if you're just capturing stuff quick fire, documentary type stuff, whatever that is, then auto ISO is fantastic. So I think it's best to show you on the back of the camera. Let's have a look at that now. Okay, so I'm going to use the Nikon for this, the Nikon D750, because it shows the ISO jumping around on the back. So we're on live view, so you can see there it says auto ISO. Now I'm in complete manual, that's M mode. So the shutter speed and the aperture are in manual. That's for me to control, but now it's in auto ISO. Okay, so we got the scene here. It's just my cushion, it's not very exciting, but that's what it thinks it should be. You can see the ISO jumping around a little bit. Now we're at 1/25 of a second, so if you're trying to capture any kind of movement, that's too slow. So any kind of head movement, gesturing, walking, laughing, that sort of thing, it's going to be blurry. We're going to start at f3.5, which is what most lenses will start at, even entry level lenses. So we're going to keep the aperture where it is, and what we're going to do is adjust the shutter speed. Okay, so we're going up. Now what I want you to watch is the ISO, because it's going to keep that exposure. The camera wants to keep that exposure. So let's get it up to 200th of a second, which will capture general movement. Okay, look at the ISO. See, it's gone to 800 ISO. So it's not as clean as 100, but that's fine, okay? So you can see what it's doing. So all you have to worry about is the shutter speed. Now let's say you're in an indoor sports event like basketball or something. You might want it at 500 of a second. Look at that. So 500 a second, your lowest aperture, and it's now shot up to 2000 ISO. So let's say you were sort of juggling around with that non-stop, and look at the ISO moving around. Now, if you were outside on a bright sunny day, you wouldn't have to worry about the ISO. It's going to be really low. But if it is getting low light and dim or indoors, and you didn't want to worry about the ISO, you just wanted to worry about the shutter speed, then you can see what it's doing. Now let's go to aperture, for instance. Now let's say we want everything in focus. So let's get the shutter ISO back down to 100. This is still in auto ISO, but the aperture is quite a shallow depth of field. Okay, so let's say we want more in detail. So I'm going to move the aperture up. Look at the ISO again. Now the aperture is shrinking the light, so the ISO is compensating for it. So let's say we want more in focus, f16. Now it's gone up to 2000 ISO. Let's say no, that's too much. Let's go to f11, and the aperture, the ISO has adjusted accordingly. Let's say you're doing a group shot, say a row of people. We'll go to f8 to be safe. And now it's 500 ISO. That's great. Let's get that real shallow depth of field. Let's go to 2.8 and raise the shutter speed now to capture movement. Look at the ISO jumping around. Now watch what the aperture does to ISO. So now it's at 500. Let's go to f4, and the ISO has nearly doubled. Okay, so you get the idea. Now exposure compensation, remember that? So let's say you want to keep that set in f4, 200th of a second. We're at 1000 ISO. If you want that darker, go to exposure compensation. Remember how that works? And it's dropping it down to a more ambient. Now the shutter speed and aperture there are not changing. So what is changing, the display isn't showing it, is ISO. So let's look at the ISO now. 500 ISO. And that's at -1 on exposure compensation, which I did in the last video. Let's go to 0 again, where it's quite bright. Now the ISO is 1000. Let's make it really bright. So the exposure compensation is going up. Now the ISO is 2000. So I hope this is kind of sinking in that you don't have to worry about the ISO. You got to know your camera's limits. You know, if it's say going to start looking really bad at higher ISOs, you've got to know how far you can push your camera. But this saves you all the hassle. So let's say you're in a low light environment and you want to keep the ambient, so you're going to keep it around about there, nice and low. Okay, and all you want to do now is muck around with the shutter speed, the aperture, and look at the ISO. It's just doing its own thing. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. So you can capture documentary events, shallow depth of field. Now you want more stuff in shot. Look at that, 4000 ISO, because it's now at f11. So sorry I'm waffling. I hope this is making sense. So that is auto ISO, and a really good way to control it is exposure compensation. So I hope that helped. That's auto ISO. I love it. I use it all the time. You have to keep a leash on it though and control it and know how to control it, but it is your friend and it just helps you be quicker and quicker and quicker. So that's what auto ISO is. We're going to deal with another couple more automatic modes in the following videos. But yeah, I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.